Now, what makes you think someone is trying to whack you, put you in the ground, turn you into worm food?" Mrs. Penny had to shout the last few terms for getting murdered over the groaning screech of a large piece of furniture being scooted across the floor in Nick's office. "This." Griffin reached into his suit jacket and slapped a piece of paper on the desk. Mrs. Penny snapped her fingers and pointed. Riley bit back a sigh and reached over her to pick it up. "You'll pay," she read aloud. "That's all it says. Where did you find it?" "I found it after Bella and I finished filming the morning show today. We've been shooting it at home since the studio blew up because we live in a very large and spacious house, a mansion, really," he said, trying and failing to look humble. "I remember. I used to live there," she said dryly. "It was stabbed into my pillow on the bed. Can you believe that?" Riley could indeed believe that. Griffin was a selfish jerk who had no qualms about trampling others to get what he wanted. The only thing stopping her from sending him packing right now was the authentic feeling fear wafting off him like cartoon stink lines. The Griffin she knew was too self-absorbed to be afraid of anything. "What the hell? I don't remember ordering curry," Nick muttered from the other room. Mrs. Penny stroked her chin, then, discovering the icing there, licked her fingers. "Read it again, but make it scary this time." Riley cleared her throat and delivered the line in her best threatening voice. "You'll pay." "Interesting. Read it again, but with a French accent," Mrs. Penny said. "I don't think that's necessary," Riley said, putting the note down. She turned her attention to the trembling news anchor in the chair. "As far as threats go, this one seems kind of vague." Nick walked past the open doorway, headed for the front door, carrying a snow shovel and a cordless drill. "But it's typed in all caps. Everyone knows that's more serious than death threats," Griffin whined. "Why didn't you go to the police? You had a homicide detective right in front of you a minute ago, and judging from the sound of the sirens, there's a half-dozen cars next door," Riley asked. "The police are bozos. Griffin here wanted professionals, isn't that right?" Mrs. Penny said, scooting her chair forward until her ample bosom rested on top of Riley's desk calendar. "Actually, I went to the police first. They've never punched me in the face or thrown me in a dumpster." The man had a point. Nick had done both of those things. "But they didn't take it seriously," Griffin continued. "They said it was probably just a prank." Mrs. Penny slapped the desk. "They obviously missed the capital letters. Amateurs." The front door opened again, and Nick backed inside, holding up his hands. "Look, can't we talk about this? Isn't there a nice roach motel you could stay at instead?" In shuffled Mr. Willicott, the last of the next-door neighbors. He was wearing 4 hats and clutching an ancient accordion. Fred and Lily followed, carrying a hammock between them loaded with pantry supplies. Gabe was behind them, balancing a faded yellow sofa on one shoulder and lugging a crate of liquor bottles under his other arm. "Put that in the bar," Mrs. Penny told Gabe. "We don't have a bar," Riley reminded her. "Then we'll have to make one, won't we?" The elderly woman snorted and tossed her purple-tinged hair. "Do not go up those stairs, Fred," Nick barked. "You better turn around when you get to the landing. Do not go up to the second floor. Damn it! Willicott, do not hang those saddlebags on Bert. Bert, do not carry his shit." Riley waved her hands to get Mrs. Penny's and Griffin's attention. "Okay, let's get this circus back under the big tent. What makes you think this isn't a prank, Griffin, besides the capital letters?" "Because immediately after finding the note, I went to the salon to get my usual, and this happened." He started to unbutton his shirt. "What happened? Is this charades? Is it a movie? The Exorcist? Monty Python and the Holy Grail, The Fast and the Furious Tokyo Drift? Mrs. Penny fired off question after question as Griffin frowned down at his monogrammed Oxford. I'm unbuttoning my shirt. Expensive buttons are smaller than working-class buttons. It takes longer, Griffin explained. Riley slouched against the filing cabinets and idly wished that she and Nick lived in a nice hut on a deserted island. The racket in Nick's office kicked up a notch. She couldn't tell if he was running the vacuum cleaner or a leaf blower. You're boring me, Gentry. I don't like boring cases, Mrs. Penny warned. Just give me a minute, he whined. Finally, his petite fingers worked the last button free. Does this look non-threatening to you? In the middle of Griffin's chest hair was the letter G in hot pink flesh. Riley rounded the desk to get a better look. Is that your chest hair? Riley asked. Shh. Griffin pressed a manicured finger to her lips. I'm a famous celebrity. I'm supposed to be hairless. Get your stupid fucking finger off my girl and put your goddamn clothes back on, Gentry, or I'm putting you in this wheelbarrow. Nick snapped from the doorway, where he was indeed pushing a wheelbarrow overflowing with trash bags. Griffin dropped his finger from Riley's mouth. Let me get a better look at this. Mrs. Penny huffed and puffed her way out of the chair. Did someone say chest hair? Lily appeared in the doorway. Her pink housecoat was still covered in a fine layer of dust, and she had several serving spoons in each pocket. Take a look at this, Mrs. Penny told her roommate. Lily motored in and planted her face 2 inches from Griffin's chest. She raised her glasses and squinted. What an interesting birthmark. Nick returned through the front door with the now empty wheelbarrow. He glanced their way, shook his head, and stomped off, muttering about how much birthdays sucked. I don't understand what I'm looking at, Riley admitted. The wax dyed my skin, Griffin lamented. The esthetician didn't notice until he got to the bottom. He always starts with a G for Griffin. And you think this is related to the note? Riley clarified. Of course it is, Mrs. Penny said, elbowing her way in for a closer look. Any idiot can see that. Lily poked Griffin in the belly with her finger. Riley stepped back and rubbed her temples. Griffin, I don't see how these things are connected. They both seem like pranks to me. There is nothing funny about defacing my body. Now use that creepy psychic woo-woo or whatever it is to solve this. Riley had done her best to deny her psychic powers while married to Griffin. Nothing was more important to the man than appearances. She'd put so much effort into pretending to be normal that she'd ended up suppressing her gift until it became uncontrollable. Now he wanted her to use it, and she wanted to punch him in his pink G. I'm telling you, this is bullshit, Nick called as he pushed another overflowing wheelbarrow load past the doorway again. And I'm telling you, as long as his check clears, I don't care, Mrs. Penny barked. These aren't pranks. Someone shot at me, Griffin announced. Before or after the capital letters? Mrs. Penny asked. Riley's nose twitched. Oh boy, she muttered. Sometimes the stronger psychic visions came on too quickly to mentally prepare. Suddenly, she found herself back among the cotton candy clouds. They parted to reveal a worried-looking Griffin behind the wheel with a pink, hairless G poking out of his unbuttoned shirt. As he swooped his sports car around his circular driveway, a single shot rang out, and a nice, neat hole appeared in Griffin's windshield, several inches from his head. Riley watched from the clouds as the blood drained from his face. A high-pitched screech emanated from his mouth before his small foot mashed the accelerator. The car shot across the cul-de-sac, taking out the neighbor's concrete corgi statue next to their mailbox, before he shifted into drive and fishtailed down the street. Riley's stomach dropped as her body went into free fall. And then, just as suddenly, she was back in her office, steadying herself on Lily's sturdy arm. "Griffin, did you say someone shot at you today?" Riley asked. "Oh, yeah. I was very upset about my chest and forgot to mention that part when I got here." "Nick,"